Good evening and welcome to the Dollar Dogs and Beer Podcast. I am your host, Andrew, and joining me tonight is Joe, and we also have special guest Big Jim of the Huddle Podcast on Tuesday nights. Jim, we're really glad to have you on tonight, bud. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. I mean, winter sucks, but besides that, we're hanging in there. Excited to be on. We've had you guys on our show on the other side, so it feels different to be a guest, but I'm excited.
Joe, how you doing tonight?
Doing pretty good. Can't complain too much.
Yeah, the last round of snow really wasn't that bad, thankfully. We didn't get the inches and inches and inches my relatives up in Lockhaven got, so there's something. Jim, I do need to point something out to you. We had Dave on 2 weeks ago, and he wanted us to remind you that he was the first guest.
Well, that's fair. I mean, you get, you it's like training wheels. You have the easy ride first, and then once you're looking to step up and be a man, then you come to the big guy.
Oh, well played, man. Well played.
So we've got the Mike Gundy of podcasters on here.
That's right. Come after me. I'm a man.
All right, Jim, what you drinking tonight, bud?
I actually got two because I figure if I'm going to be talking about Baltimore Orioles baseball, you have to have more than one drink. So I'm going to be starting off. This is actually a special run that the beer and beverage shop down in Lancaster did. It's from Poor Man's Brewing, actually, over there in Ephrata. But they did a special beer and beverage IPA. And then my number two that I'm going to go to is the old trusted favorite, the Broken Skull IPA, Steve Austin's Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing in El Segundo, California.
Good choice. Good choice. Joe, what about you?
I'm sticking with the booze right now. I'm on a Evan Williams small batch 1783 with Mountain Dew. Can't go wrong.
That's not a bad night.
No, and I'm going through my my Chicago Cubs glass this week. So
there you go. So tonight, because to pull a pun from Jason, since he's not going to be with us tonight for the most part, I'm a little sour about how slow things have gone with the CBA so far. So I went with one of the sourest beers I've ever had from Trogs, the Dear Peter.
There you go.
Delicious sour, but oh man, if you like Sour Monkey, this is even more sour than Sour Monkey.
Ooh, dude, I can't do sours. I've tried a couple, and that is not my palate, not at all.
What I've been doing with my wife is I've gotten her started more on the tarts, and then we'll slowly start to gradually get more and more sour. She finally last summer was able to take a sip of Sour Monkey without spitting it out immediately. So we're making slow progress.
Nice.
All right, guys. So speaking of the CBA, the Players Association did meet up with MLB today. We actually had a legitimate meeting for the first time since last Thursday, I believe, or 2 Thursdays ago. It would have been 2 Thursdays ago. And MLB basically told the union a while ago, you need to drop some of the big items. We're not going to meet you on every single thing. So the union did make 2 cuts. They dropped the request for an age-based free agency. They also significantly cut the amount of revenue sharing and asked the league to funnel away from the small market teams. They initially wanted to cut the transfer money back by like $100 million, and they cut it back by just $30 million this time. Because let's face it, if you take $100 million away, some of those small market teams will probably have to have payrolls under $100 million because let's face it, they're not going to be able to sell enough tickets to pay their players. We also had the union rejected the 3 proposals from MLB from 11 days ago. That was the formula-based salary system for players between 2 and 3 years of service time, draft pick reward for success by players who started on opening day rosters, and the tweak to the 3-team draft lottery. And then there were 3 things that they said, yeah, we're not really going to move on. And that was raising the minimum salary from $570,500 a year to $775,000 a year, bumping the competitive balance tax threshold from $210 million to $245 million, and an 8-team draft lottery. Now, that said, the teams are going to meet again tomorrow, which is very, very promising as far as I'm concerned, because there's been so little movement so far. I'm just happy to see the 2 sides are actually getting together and willing to talk, because God knows we've needed that. Joe, what do you think, bud?
Yeah, I mean, it took them long enough. I mean, the first session was, 6 weeks after they locked out, which to me made no sense why they waited. Um, the fact that they're finally gonna, meet on consecutive days is a good thing. I don't know again why it took this long. Um, and I think we talked about it before back in December. Mid January was kind of their timeline, and it took them till mid January to start talking. So I mean, I'm encouraged that they at least kind of know where each side is a little bit on some of these things. But I don't know, kind of, it doesn't really move the needle for me one way or the other yet.
What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys make great points. Is when you're looking at a situation like this, and you have two sides that a month and a half ago or whatever it was seemed pretty steadfast, and things look pretty grim. The fact that there's still ways to go, but the fact that here we are in mid-January and two sides are meeting today, the two sides meeting again tomorrow. Even that in and of itself, not even taking into account, some of the details of the meeting today, the fact that they're coming right back to the table tomorrow instead of going, you know what, let's go think about this for a month or so or a couple of weeks. The fact they're like, hey, we want to get back together tomorrow. Good talks today. That to me, that's a positive sign. To me, that makes me realize, whether it's players, owners, both together are realizing that if you don't move this thing in a forward direction here pretty damn quick, you're gonna have you're gonna be in a position where you're gonna miss part of the season, and I don't think that's good for anybody. Especially in the climate we're in. I just don't think sending the message of either side, regardless of whether there's good arguments or bad, either side saying, hey, we're not making enough money, because that's how the public perceives any sort of a lockout in sports. Not everybody's going to go digging into the dirt and figuring out what the sides are saying. They're going to look at this and say, oh, these millionaires think they're not making enough money. That's cute. You're gonna hurt the game the longer they sit out.
Yeah,
Agreed.
I think too. We've touched on this a bit. The Field of Dreams game. We keep going back to this. It was their highest rated game in 16 years. You cannot afford to lose that right now.
Mm-mm. That's great
and
PR for baseball. Absolutely great PR for baseball. And whether you're going to do a game, did they say they're doing another one there this year?
Yes,
they are. It'll be the Reds and the Cubs this year.
Okay.
In that one,
you do stuff like that. You do the Little League one. Find a way to keep doing kind of some of these special games. Like make the games feel special, because I think that's the thing too with baseball. It's like I don't think anybody's going to pretend that the general public is going to be like, there's 162 games. Like some people are going to be like, they're not going to care if you miss some games, but the perception of the money issue is the big problem. But yeah, you had some good PR last year. You got to keep that going into this season.
Yeah, you don't want to stop good momentum when you have it. Jason's not joining us tonight. His wife, Karen, is feeling a little bit under the weather, so he's going to be hopping along with comments from the Facebook stream. And so far, what he said is good compromising so far. It seems it's a good sign. And he said, I think they both realize they can't afford to miss games. And that is the biggest key, I think, right there. If you lose a little bit of spring training, it sucks, but it's not the end of the world. It's just going to slow down player evaluation a little bit. The big thing is they cannot afford to lose regular season games. Baseball took too many years to recover from the strike in 94, 95. And frankly, it took raging steroids to make it happen. So
great point.
Pretending they didn't know about it and then getting outraged about it 5 years later, to pretend they gave a shit to bring the game back, pretty much.
It's the American way, man.
I was going to say it's America's pastime. Feels very pro wrestling to me, actually.
Just less chair throwing and smashing, right?
Yeah, I mean, you bring some of that into baseball. I'm sure more people will watch, though.
Well, I mean, we have had players attack water coolers with bats many times.
That's true. That's true. And that minor league manager for the Braves throwing rosin grenades at the plate. That's
Phil
always good
Wellman.
stuff.
To this day, one of my favorite videos to watch and laugh at.
It is an art, that video.
I mean, that Bobby Cox had some brilliant meltdowns, and let's remember he was ejected more than anybody else in the history of baseball, and even Bobby never had a meltdown quite like that.
Gotta love the minor leagues, man. It's so good.
And Jason said, "Poppy destroying the Orioles' phone."
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good one as well.
Which they later returned to him.
Yeah.
And also, Jason would like to point out he was at the game for that meltdown as well.
Nice.
Man, that was a game to be at.
Right?
Not only did you get to see Big Poppy, you got to see Big Poppy have a Big Poppy-sized meltdown.
Exactly. That's good.
Almost Lou Piniella-esque there.
True.
Although I have to ask though, Jason, since you're watching along, was the Big Poppy meltdown more epic than some of the Earl Weaver meltdowns, where he's just going nuts out there on umpires that are 2.5 times bigger than he is?
Oh, Earl was a legend, man. Earl was an absolute legend. I obviously wasn't at the game, but for me, I would have to tip my hand on that one to Poppy because I was actually there. Something about being there and watching it live is probably better than watching it on TV.
True. Yeah, it's true. The best I can find of Earl, it's YouTube now because he's poor guy's long gone. yeah. Jason said Poppy went ape shit on that phone. It was amazing. It was epic. Oh, Jason, I'm jealous. I'm glad you got to see it though. All right. So since we're on the Orioles, let's move on into the AL East. Jim, as I don't know if you've been watching along, but we've been going worst to first. So we will start off with the lovable losers of the AL East, the Baltimore Orioles. Last year, they had a record of 52 and 110, good enough for 5th place in the division. Now, let's keep in mind, though, of the most competitive division in all of baseball because the other 4 teams had 90-plus wins.
Yeah. Now, I am correct. That was the worst record in baseball, right, as well?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Hey, at least we did something. We were the best of the worst.
I mean, the Diamondbacks gave you a very, very good chase for a long time.
They just weren't committed enough to the cause. That's all.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Oh, no, I'm sorry. They tied the Diamondbacks. No, they were both at 52 and 110.
Aha!
It was a tie. The race to the basement was a tie. So, big change. Hey, Tony popped on the chat too. I was actually just about to mention that, Tony. Big change for the Orioles coming up. They decided to tweak the field because there's so many home runs hit out of Oriole Park at Camden Yards because it's apparently not the shitty pitching staff. It's all the ballpark's fault. Damn it.
Right. Well, yeah. Hey, when you hit yourself in the thumb with a hammer, you didn't do it. The hammer did it. Everybody knows that.
Exactly. So what's going to happen is left field's being moved, the wall's being moved back in varying increments to be up to 30 feet farther back from home plate. The height of the wall is going to go up 5 years. So to put it in perspective, last year it was 333 down the line to left, 364 in the power alley in left center, and the wall was 7 feet high. So it's going to be upwards of probably closer to 394 in the alley and then 12-foot tall wall. So, I mean, great. I'm glad they think that's going to help. I'm really not sure if that's going to make a dramatically huge difference at all. But yeah, it's worth a shot, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if your theory is you give up too many opposing home runs, I mean, isn't that also going to take away some of your own home runs at the same time? Like it could be counterproductive. No, but I kind of like it. I mean, Oriole Park is like the first of the new style ballpark, so it's been around. This is the 30th anniversary of it, I believe, the 30th year. So there's only so much you can do to a park to change it aesthetically. And I've seen some of the renderings of it. I think it looks pretty neat. It's a different look for Baltimore that you really have never seen. You go back to Memorial Stadium and you just had your standard outfield fence. This one relatively standard despite the geographic makeup of the stadium. So it's a different look. I guess keeps some of the balls in the park. I also think it's gonna help when you have 600 people in attendance. You're going to be at 8% capacity instead of 6, since you're going to take some of the seats out of there. But I mean, it's a different look, and I guess at this point you got to try anything besides, I don't know, build up your actual lineup and pitching staff.
That's exactly where I was gonna go. If you're not gonna spend money on players, you might as well make sure you don't give up as many home runs.
Right,
Jeez,
exactly.
please.
So now you're only going to lose games. What?
Jason may have had the one-liner of the night. He might have knocked you out, Joe. Exactly. Jason might have knocked your one-liner out. How can we keep our pitchers from giving up home runs? I know. Let's move the fence all the way back to Timonium. And incidentally, if you're going for
a light rail to catch it, though.
Yeah. Hey, like I said, if you're going for a day game, that's where you park and hop the light rail to get in and out and avoid traffic and paying for parking. And then you won't even have to get on the light rail as long then.
Hell, they should pay you for parking to go see the Orioles play.
Oh, man. All right, so let's look at this murderous row of a depth chart that the Orioles are rolling out this year. So the infield, you got Jacob Nottingham catching, Ryan Mountcastle at first, Rogundo Odor, their new acquisition, at second. Third base, you got Kelvin Gutierrez. Shortstop, you got Jahmai Jones. In the outfield, you got Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins, and Anthony Santander, and Ryan McKenna. And DHing, you've got Trey Mancini. I mean, the offense isn't horrific. You have some good bats in there. Mountcastle, Mullins, and Mancini are all dangerous bats. Not to mention Cedric Mullins' speed is phenomenal out there in center field. Pitching, yeah, they've got an ace, and that's unfortunately about it. They've got John Means, who threw one of the no-hitters last year in the record year of no-hitters. But behind Means, you've got Jordan Lyles, Bruce Zimmerman, Zach Lothar, and Keegan Akin. Shaking in my boots, man. Shaking in my boots.
I feel like Cliff Clavin, who are 4 people who have never been in my kitchen. Like, what? I mean, come on. Yeah, the issue with this team, it's basically been a similar story since the last time they've been in the postseason. Is you have young players that need to develop, and by all accounts, you have some decent young players. They changed the coaching staff to really kind of a developmental staff a couple years ago, and you thought, hey, maybe this team can build something. And at times last year that they looked like they did have some promising moments, but promising moments and a group of nobodies, unless you got a guy writing the script for Major League 4, isn't really going to do a whole lot, especially when you're playing in the AL East. And that, like, to me, that's the biggest problem. Like, you can't just rely on developing young talent every year. It's a fool's game in that division.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Jason brings up a good point. The prospects for the Orioles are fantastic. They've got one of the best farm systems in baseball. Adley Rutschman and Grayson Rodriguez, they are numbers 1 and 6 in the MLB Top 100. I think consensus, obviously it's going to change in which writer you're talking to, but I think they're between either top 3 and top 5 for the farm system. So the big thing for the Orioles is they need these young guys to get seasoned quickly so they can get them up to the major league club, because looking at the new acquisitions they've made, let's see, waiver claim, and Rogundo Odor.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's and the thing they have to do too is if you're gonna commit to this young talent in your farm system is actually keep them in your system, because we've seen
Yeah.
guys come up and then they do the August fire sale every year. They see, hey, this guy's pretty good. Somebody's gonna want him. Let's trade him for a bag of balls. Like,
Basically.
and that's the unfortunate thing, and that's what becomes so frustrating as an Orioles fan is even when besides those 2 years where you went to the postseason in the mid 2010s, for the last 30 years of my life, pretty much you've pretty much just enjoyed being a not even a mediocre team, a bad team, losing season after losing season, and unfortunately, when you continue to field a lineup like this one, it feels like it's going to be more of the same.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And you've brought this up many, many times, Jim. You have the worst, now that Jeffrey Lurie is gone, you have the worst owner in Major League Baseball right now.
Oh, it's not even close. It's not even close. That family has enjoyed just collecting money from fans and media outlets for decades now. And there seemed to be a glimmer of hope a couple of years ago when the word was, and I'm not being morbid or cruelly funny about it, is when you heard some of the reports that like the old man Peter was kind of on his deathbed practically, that there was talks that Major League Baseball was going to force the family's hand, because it was almost like absentee ownership, like the kids were just kind of sitting idly by. And it was like, cool, their league's going to make them sell, and somebody's got it. Because, like, the thing is, I mean, you saw it in 2015 and 2017 when the Orioles went to the postseason. The fans showed up, man. Like, Orioles fans are hungry for baseball, like, and for good baseball. Like, the fan base is there. It's a great market for the game, but why are people going to shell out money to watch a terrible product year in, year out? So I thought, man, somebody's going to come in here and buy this team and actually commit to something. And unfortunately, it looks like the old man's clinging on. So
Yeah.
So who knows what's going to happen? But yeah, the ownership is without question the Orioles' biggest problem.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, man. They get more attendance from the fans that live out of market that are coming in to see their teams visiting. I mean, I know last year when the Braves came in for that 3-game series, my boy's old soccer coach from the Ephrata area, Coach Lytle, he took the whole family down because they're diehard Braves fans, and they don't like going to Philly because the fan sucks. And the Orioles, let's face it, there are probably 14 Orioles fans in the ballpark for that game. And
social distancing is great at Orioles games.
Yeah, exactly. So Jason would also like you to remember, though, Jim, on the positive end, they were the last undefeated team to start 2021.
Goddamn right they were, and damn you don't forget that.
And they spent more days in first place than the New York Yankees.
Which is, I mean, if we're talking good stats, like that is the most beautiful of them all, because the Yankees had no business not spending a number of days in first place, and to spend less days in first than the Orioles, chef's kiss.
All right, so Joe, they were 52 and 110 this year. So what are you putting their wins at this year, buddy?
I don't see it getting any better. I mean, the only thing Odor has to offer is, a good right cross, and that's about it. So, I mean, if you're not going to go out there and make the improvements you need to make, which they clearly haven't, and they're obviously not, retaining some of the stuff that they have, realistically, I can't see them getting any better. I mean, not as good as the rest of that division is. The only team that you expect to see maybe a little drop off, I mean, it could be the Blue Jays with some of the talent they lost, but every other team hasn't lost anything really so far in the AL East. So,
all right, what do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, can they get to 63 and 99? Can we avoid a 3 digits in the loss column? Like, I don't, and it's unfortunate. I don't expect Kind of like Joe said, man. It's sad that I don't expect it to be much better. Maybe you get into the 60 wins. But besides that, I mean, it's embarrassing to say, like, 81 and 81 would feel like a fucking World Series at this point. Which is it's just embarrassing for Orioles baseball, but it's kind of been the name of the game for him. Yeah, it's and yeah, if you were in a bad division, maybe you could get away with a bit more, but when you're playing a majority of your games against four of the better teams in the major league, you can't get out of that.
Yeah. Jason said he's going 60 wins this year max. I think I'm going to go right around there. Probably 58, 60 wins. I don't think they have quite enough to avoid another 100 loss season. The problem isn't just that the Orioles don't have enough on the major league roster. The problem is nobody really lost much in the rest of the division.
Yeah.
Like I said, you got four other teams that won 90 plus games. I don't think that's going to happen again next year. But you know,
well, and like the Red Sox, they pulled into town early.
mm-hmm.
They weren't supposed to be that good. The Yankees, if they can ever figure it out, shit, Tampa just keeps kind of hanging around. So yeah, I mean, maybe Toronto slacks a little bit, but then you got to hope if you're Baltimore that you catch Toronto on one of their downswings and not on an upswing. So that's the hard part too, is when do you play these teams? Do you catch them on a heater? Do you catch them on a slump? It seems like, unfortunately, a lot of times the Orioles catch their opponents on a heater.
Yeah. All right. So, anything else about your Orioles, Jim, or you good?
No, I mean, yeah, I see Tony's comments there about where would they move you? And yeah, I don't think they're not going to move. I mean, the Angelos family's not going to move them, I don't think. And you're not going to leave that ballpark. The ballpark's valuable. People love the park, and I mean, it's that and the Inner Harbor are the only shining parts of that entire city, really. So, I don't think the Orioles are going anywhere. I don't, if they haven't moved them by now, they're certainly not going anywhere.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. I mean, first of all, it's hard to move.
Lets it happen either.
Yeah, well, it's hard to move a franchise because teams are so competitive about stay out of my market.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the
really,
only thing we're seeing we'll obviously talk about them here in a minute, but the Tampa Montreal thing they're still trying to make happen.
Yeah, that got shot. Yeah, that's a mess. That is an absolute mess. But wait, yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit since they won the division last year. All right, so the number 4 team in the AL East last year, we have the Toronto Blue Jays. They had a record of 91 and 71. We were so damn close to that ultimate chaos scenario of a 4-way tie or a 3-way tie. I'm still disappointed we didn't get it. So the Blue Jays, they're still returning a crazy, scary lineup with kids of former major leaguers. You've got Alejandro Kirk catching. You've got Vlad Jr. at first base, who should have been MVP last year, will probably be MVP next year. You have Kevon Biggio at second, Santiago Espinal at third, Bo Bichette at shortstop. In the outfield, you got Loris Gurriel, you've got George Springer, you've got Randall Grichuk, and you've got Teoscar Hernandez. Now, the pitching's not quite as good last year. They lost Robbie Ray. They picked up Kevin Gossman. Gossman had a great season, and I'm really pissed that, Jim, you never saw it with the Orioles, and I never saw it with the Braves when we had him. But good for him with San Francisco and a team that could mash any other lineup in the majors. But let's face it, Blue Jays fans, that's a major downgrade to your roster. And then behind Gossman, you've got Jose Barrios, Hyun-Jin Ryu, Alek Manoah, and Ross Stripling, and Jordan Romano closing, and a new acquisition for the bullpen, Yimi Garcia, as well. So starting pitching is not going to be as good. The offense is still going to be solid. There's a lot to love about this Blue Jays squad. What do you think, Joe?
Offensively, there's a ton to love about this team. Springer is known to be clutch here and there when they need a big hit when he's up. Vlad Jr. is enough said. You don't really have to. We've gone after his numbers pretty aggressively here in the last year. I mean, he's you know, if it weren't for the Shohei phenomenon, he would have won the MVP. But yeah, I think Ray is too much of a downgrade based on the rest of that rotation. I don't see him having quite the same year. I don't know. I don't remember quite what Gossman and Ray's records were, but it's probably the difference between where they were last year and how many wins they have next year. I think this year.
Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can look at this team and I mean, aesthetic wise, I love that they've kind of gone back to their little bit more vintage style look. I've always loved the Blue Jays look. But yeah, I mean, you have a lineup that's exciting, just absolutely an exciting lineup to watch. Vlad Jr. as a guy who grew up watching his dad. I mean, I remember watching his dad play in Harrisburg. So, I was along for that phenomenon, and now his kid's coming in and is arguably the most exciting player in baseball to watch. So, to see him on a team that, historically is has not always been up there, but when they are, man, that city is passionate. But I had to chuckle the one, the year my wife and I went on our anniversary trip up into Canada. We stayed in Toronto, and we had planned it like a year and a half in advance, and that was the year. It was in 2016. They went to the World Series that year, and we were in Toronto trying to drive through the city for game one or something. It was like, this is insane. Who would have guessed? You schedule a trip, and the Toronto Blue Jays actually figure out how to put an entire season and postseason together. But man, like that city, you're driving in, like the people were just passionate about it. So it's super fun. Yeah, I don't know that I anticipate them to necessarily get better. Yes, I am, Jason, and you, I believe, are older than me, so you can take that and shove it up your cane. But it's again, you're talking when you're in this division. How do you improve from year to year? And it's almost impossible when you're one of the quote unquote smaller market teams. Like Tampa's kind of seemed to find that magic. But Toronto's exciting. We'll see if they can kind of capture magic in a bottle again this year.
So it's really hard to predict what's going to happen with the Blue. Sorry, I've been watching Jason and Jim back and forth in the chat. It's hard to predict where some of these teams are going to move because there's going to be a lot of movement between the Jays and the Red Sox and the Yankees. I still think Tampa is going to stay on top next year. Tampa Bay, they develop pitching better than almost any team in the majors. Atlanta, they're trying to get back to what they did back in the 90s, and they have brought some good guys up, but I don't think anybody has passed Tampa Bay for the best churners of good pitchers at this point. So the big things that they've done so far, they did re-sign Jose Barrios, 7-year deal, $131 million. There's a player opt-out after 2026. And based on performance and awards, 2027, 2028 can increase by up to $5 million. And this was a deal to avoid arbitration. And then they picked up Sean Anderson, a waiver claim from San Diego. Again, the Gossman deal was 5 years, $110 million. Yimi Garcia's deal was 2 years, $10 million with a $5 million team option for 2024 and a $1 million buyout. Honestly, that Yimi Garcia deal, that's a phenomenal deal for a good quality reliever for $5 million a year. No arguments from me there. So they're making small market kind of moves. They're trying to keep their own in house. Gossman, I will admit, Gossman was a bigger splash than I thought they were going to make, but I think they were also kind of forced into that move when they wouldn't, re-sign their Cy Young winner. So, you have to make a move somewhere. So that's where they put the money on that. My guess for the Blue Jays next year, I think they are going to increase a little bit. I'm going to say maybe 93-ish wins. I think they're going to be second, and they probably are going to take one of the wild card spots, I think. Joe, what do you think?
I don't have that much confidence in them to go any higher. It kind of depends on what the rest of this division does, but I think between Gossman and Ray, that's probably what 4 wins at least. So I'd see him
Yeah.
being about the same, maybe one or two, one way or the other. But I don't know that I see him in second in the division.
What do you think, Jim?
I think the big thing is depends. Like, can the full rotation hold up, and when you're going to catch some of the different teams, some of the hotter teams in the AL or the NL, and how the schedule will work itself out. And how the whole thing's going to play out. I think you're going to see him. I think you're going to see him back in this 90 to 100. If they can really get hot at a certain point of year, you can maybe see him creep up into that 95 to 100 range. But I think doing about the same as what you did, anywhere probably between 85 and 95 is your most realistic. And it's going to just depend on what happens with Boston, what happens with New York. I think you're pretty right, Andrew. I think Tampa is probably going to stay at the top. Yeah, I think you're right in the wheelhouse here.
All right. It's nice to get validated like that. Doesn't happen too often with Jason around.
Well, he's a jackass, so.
Oh, man. All right, guys. Anything else for the Blue Jays? All right, let's move on to the Yankees. So the Yankees last year were third in the AL East. I almost said NL, my God. Their record was 92-70. They were the second wild card team. They were eliminated by the Red Sox in the wild card game. They bring back a lot of the same pieces. You still have Gary Sanchez catching, and my God, that guy's a shell of himself from a couple of years ago. I'm so glad he was a very quick early drop on my fantasy team last year, as I once again won my family's fantasy baseball league. Luke Voigt at first, Gleyber Torres at second, DJ LeMahieu at third, Gio Urshela at shortstop. Outfield, you got Joey Gallo, Aaron Hicks, Aaron Judge, and Giancarlo Stanton at the DH. Pitching-wise, you still have Garrett Cole at the top, which that's never a bad thing. You've got Jordan Montgomery at 2. Luis Severino, if he's finally healthy, will be at 3. Jamison Tallison at 4. Nestor Cortez at 5. And, of course, they still have the 100-mile-an-hour arm in the bullpen with Aroldis Chapman closing. So still a very, very solid Yankees team. Offensively, they still need help. Same problem they had last year. The pitching's pretty decent, but that's why they went after Joey Gallo, because they had no bats. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, it's astounding to me how kind of year in, year out, you'd expect the New York Yankees to be the best lineup, the best rotation. You have literally all the money that you can play with in this entire sport. And the fact that you can't put a lineup together to continuously put up a number of runs and to win ball games. I mean, they won 92 games, which I mean is no depressing feat, but you can't talk to a Yankees fan and expect them to try and tell you that they're happy with the direction this team has been the last few years. There's no way. There's absolutely no way. So, yeah, I feel like you're probably going to be in about some of the same. Yeah, there's nothing about this lineup. I mean, unless you're as bad at pitching as the Orioles are, that should really intimidate a lot of teams. I think we're going to see, kind of same old out of the Yankees.
What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I'm just not that impressed with them. I think they found a way into that second wild card spot. They had the bravado to say, well, fine, we want to play in Fenway. And Boston said, fine, we're going to beat you in Fenway. Nothing like tempting your rival by saying, yeah, we want to play you at your place. Gary Sanchez is probably the worst catcher in the division from a position standpoint. Maybe outside of the Orioles, but he's the worst catcher from a position standpoint. Yeah, he still has a bat, but he's not quite as strong at framing and things like that. Defensively, he's pretty bad. They don't really have a quote unquote everyday shortstop that everybody knows they can count on. I don't really think that Yankee fans. I would agree with Jim. They're not really too optimistic about kind of not knowing who your shortstop is on a day-to-day basis and whether he can actually live up to being a shortstop for the Yankees. Because let's be honest, number two set a high bar there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't know that they have enough. I think it depends an awful lot on who else they might pick up here in between things. I think giving up Brett Gardner was a bad idea. He's a pretty decent bat and a decent fielder. He's not obviously not Aaron Judge by any means, but or any other half decent outfielder, but he still has a decent bat on it, every third day or something. So I was kind of surprised by that. I don't know if they bring back Rizzo at all or where Rizzo ends up. There's a lot of unknowns about the Yankees, I think.
Yeah. So Tony, one of my buddies, he's actually he's the guy in charge of the Black Arrow podcast distribution network that we're under. He's a big Yankees fan, and one prospect that he wants to bring up is Roderick Arias. He thinks he's going to be the next A-Rod as long as he keeps proving himself up throughout the minors. He's impressed with their farm system, and honestly, the Yankees do not have a bad farm system. And Roderick Arias is the number one ranked international prospect. So, that could be the answer at shortstop coming up in the future for them. Jason was saying that the Yankees, they haven't been the same since they lost to Arizona in 01. And I think is very true. That Yankees team, when Gonzo hit that little blooper off Mariano that just fell between the infield and the outfield, you could feel a change in the winds. The Yankees were not what they used to be at that point. Also from Jason, they kept Swisher for the Yankees for young energy. Kicking out Gardner was a bad move. Yeah,
I think he hits the nail on the head with this one. They're designed to strike out or hit homer, which is very reminiscent of that Orioles team that went to the ALCS in 15 against the Royals.
Yeah.
And when you get against a team that can just kind of small ball you, the Orioles are screwed. I watched game one of that ALCS and I was like, oh, this is gonna suck. Because the Orioles were the same way, man. Like they led the league in homers, but they couldn't do any. And if you could pitch around them, that team's dead. Same with the Yankees. That's a great point.
Yeah, I agree. And one other point Tony brings up, they have no defense.
No.
And that really showed also in the wild card game against the Red Sox. I mean, the Red Sox just put an absolute beat down on the Yankees. All right,
yeah,
so
and I think Chapman too is a shell of what he was when he was with the Yankees the first time and with the Cubs. I mean, he's clearly not that strong of a pitcher anymore.
Something's up with him because he still has the velo, but I wonder if he got really affected by the crackdown on sticky stuff because it looked like his fastball got pretty flat and didn't move as much. And let's face it, you could throw the fastball 110 miles an hour. If it's straight, a major league hitter is going to be able to handle it and pop it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he was never really known for phenomenal control.
No, and we saw that too with Garrett Cole. I think Garrett Cole's numbers kind of fell a little bit once they started cracking down. So I mean, you can have the fastest ball in the world, but if you can't, you can't angle it, you can't aim it. Well, like you said, anybody's going to hit that.
Yeah. All right, Joe, what are you thinking for win total for the Yankees next year?
Somewhere around where they are, 92, 95 tops. I'm probably more inclined to be on the lower side of that, but somewhere around where they are, maybe a little below. I don't see them, scrape. They might scrape in depending on how the rest of the AL is, because let's be honest, that wild card's coming out of the AL East, and probably both of them are. Because the AL Central is garbage, and you know, unless Oakland goes on a tear and competes with Seattle, I don't know. I it, at least one of the wild cards is coming out of this AL East, and I don't know if it's going to be, if they're going to get two like they did this year, though.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say at least one wild card's coming out of the AL East. The question is, will the Mariners be able to either pass the Astros or take the second wild card this upcoming season? Dave is very confident that the Mariners, if everything falls right, could very well pass the Astros this year. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Jim, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't endorse Dave's teams being successful in life, but I think he was on to a good point there. With the Yankees, I mean, yeah, I think they're probably going to be about the same. My hope is that a team like Toronto gets a little bit better. My hope that a team in New York gets worse. So I'm gonna lean into that one. I'm gonna hope that they get worse. So let's go like 80-85 wins. Like I don't think there's going to be a huge drop off, but let's hope that this lineup, we said strikeout or home runs. Let's hope they go strikeout more times than home runs, and that they fall to kind of just below sub 500 at like 80 and 82. That would just be nice.
I don't think they fall that far.
Probably not, but I'm a hopeful. I have no hope in the Orioles, so I at least have to have hope that a team I hate gets worse.
What were we saying, Jeff?
They've got the third best pitcher in New York, so
that's true.
Jason, friend of the show, Jason, he says 85 wins. I'm going to go a little bit better than that. I think 87, 88 is what I'm expecting of the Yankees. But honestly, if it's all the way down at 85, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't think the Yankees do better than third, and I don't think they're going to take the second wild card next year.
What a shame.
And Jason's ready to clean house. He said if the Yankees don't make the playoffs this year, you fire Boone, you fire Cashman. Toronto's on the rise and they're stacked offensively. I 100% agree with that. How long has Cashman been in charge of the Yankees front office?
Probably too long if you're a Yankees fan.
Yeah. It's the only reason that Boone got extended is because they made the playoffs. Yeah. I mean, if they didn't scrape into that wild card spot, Boone would have been fired.
Yeah.
And rightly so. I mean, I don't think he deserved another year, but
no, if he didn't make it, he was gone. No ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the big rival of the Yankees, the Boston Red Sox. They ended last year with a 92-70 record. That was good for second in the AL East. They were the first AL wildcard team, and they were eliminated by the Astros in the ALCS. They bring back a lot of the same guys. They bring back Christian Vasquez catching. You've got Bobby Dahlback at first, Christian Arroyo at second, Rafael Devers at third, Xander Bogaerts at short. Outfield, you've got Kike, you've got Jackie Bradley Jr., you've got Alex Verdugo, and you've got JD Martinez at DH. Pitching, you've got Chris Soleil. It looks like he should be back and healthy this year. Nathan Eovaldi, Nick Pivetta, Rich Hill, Tanner Houck. And they also acquired Michael Wacha as a free agent as well. Couple big losses, though. They did lose Eduardo Rodriguez, who went to the Tigers. So they also lost Kyle Schwarber. They declined the option, although Schwarber's still out there, so that's still a possibility that he could come back. And the Wacha, I mean, that's a 1 year prove it deal, 1 year, $7 million. So if that doesn't work out, no big deal. The Red Sox, they arrived early last year. We pointed this out throughout the playoffs last year. We pointed this out in the season wrap last year. They're a good, they're a good young team, and they're definitely on the rise. What do you think? Are they going to do a little better this year? Are they going to do a little worse, about the same? What do you think, Joe?
I see them doing better than they did last year. I think, like we've said, they arrived a year ahead of what we expected them to do, what most people expected them to do. I think having those 6 starters that you mentioned, I'm pretty comfortable with that as a rotation if I'm in charge of the Red Sox. Having you could stretch guys out, have a 6-man rotation. I'm pretty comfortable with that. I don't know if I like the order. I mean, not to say that the order you have them listed is the order they would be in, but
Right.
um, I could see Rich Hill maybe 4 or 5, um, or 6 if you do 6 man, somewhere in there. I think they have. I saw this a lot watching them last year. They are probably the most patient team at the plate. They were definitely the most patient team last year. The way that they almost as patient as Juan Soto. From a plate discipline standpoint, really working counts, making pitchers throw pitches. I, I see them doing a lot of things good. They didn't really lose that much, other than Rodriguez, and who knows what'll happen with Schwarber and the rest of free agency once it opens back up again. So I see them doing big things, and they were a year ahead of schedule, so they can only go further up.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I think you have to assume that they're going to get better. Like, I think if you look at where the Red Sox were going 2.5, 3 seasons ago, you thought, 2021, they're probably improving. They might be middle of the road around that 500 mark. 2022 is probably the first year that they're really going to be like in contention. And then all of a sudden last year came along and they kind of surprised everybody, including, Red Sox fans. And I know I had you guys on Huddle Up last year. We were talking about it, and one of our listeners had commented, that's a Red Sox fan, and was like, there's no way this team's going to be good this year, and just surprised everybody for the entire season. So one would assume that a year later with a similar lineup, same coaching, I don't necessarily expect them to move backwards, unless it was just kind of one of those flash in the pan years. We've seen it in sports where a team overperforms for a season and then just can't recapture that. I mean, if you're talking the NFL, a couple years, we're not far removed from the Jacksonville Jaguars in the AFC title game. Okay. So it happens sometimes. That said, I don't see it happening with the Red Sox. I think the lineup and the pitching, it's just too good, unfortunately, because I hate them as well.
If you really want to go NFL and obscure, we're really not that far away from the Minneapolis Miracle.
Yeah, I mean, it happens, man. It happens.
Yeah. So Jason said Red Sox would be like 2 seasons ago, either a bust or a contender. They have an amazing infield defense-wise. The pitching has been shaky due to injuries. Jason, I don't agree with you on the amazing infield defense. The left side of that infield has not been phenomenal outside of Bogarts, I don't think. And the right side of the infield could be better. If you look at the advanced defensive numbers, they're not phenomenal. They're not terrible by any small stretch of the imagination. I would still take the Red Sox infield over the Yankees infield any day of the week. But they could definitely do a little better defensively than they're doing. At least that's my thought there. But yeah, I'm really curious to see what's going to happen with the Red Sox, because I think this is a hard team to try and predict for next year. Are they going to keep growing on what they did? Are they going to regress a little bit? Or are they going to be about the same? And again, the big question with these AL East teams, what the hell is the rest of this division going to look like? Because the Blue Jays will probably be better. The Yankees will be about the same, maybe worse. The Orioles really can't get much worse. I think they've probably hit the floor for that. So, you've only got so many cheap wins you're going to get in there. And I don't remember who the AL East plays in interleague play next season. Something I should have looked up, but forgot to do so. So where do I think the Red Sox are going to end? They were at 92 wins this year. Oh, man. I think I'm going to put the Red Sox about 90 wins, maybe 92. I think maybe a very slight regression. I will not at all be shocked if I'm wrong, either way lower or way higher, though. What do you think, Joe?
I'm going to go about 95, 96, somewhere in there, win-wise. I think they didn't lose a ton, and they added a couple of insurance pieces so far. Who knows what they'll do when free agency opens back up once the deal's done. you know, that's the one caveat to some of these teams that were, in a tight division last year is, well, who makes a splash once everything opens back up again? Whom do the Yankees throw everything they can at Carlos Correa? That certainly changes the dynamic a bit, if they do that. But as things stand now, I see about 95, 96 for the Red Sox. I think they stay pretty firm here in the second place spot.
What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I think about the same. If I'm looking at the Red Sox, I don't expect them to regress. So at worst, you're going to go 92 and 70. I feel like, but I think they'll probably improve a little bit. 95, 100, 105 if they really get hot. But I think they're going to be about the same. I think they're going to be the number 2 team in this division. I think they're going to make it to the wild card, and then can they get hot? We'll find out.
Jason has them at 96 wins. And he also liked to point out that 96 wins in the East is like 110 wins in the AL Central.
Oh, absolutely.
Man, you're not wrong. I mean,
and just like for the Southsiders, it didn't do jack. So,
I mean, it's true. It's true. I mean, let's think about it. The best record in baseball last year was the Giants. If the Giants were in the AL or in the AL Central last year, would they have beaten the Mariners for the best regular season record of all time? It's certainly possible because they wouldn't have let their pedal up in early August.
Yeah.
True.
All right, guys. Anything else about the Red Sox?
I hate them.
They're one of the teams I actually don't hate in the American League. So yeah.
Oh, you don't have to be in a division with them for the last forever. So,
I mean, that's a fair point.
I will
wouldn't hate them either if I didn't have to. If the Orioles didn't stare up into their ass every year.
I will say that is quite the ballpark. Even if you're not a Red Sox fan, if you haven't been to Fenway, get there.
Yeah, it's one of the places I want to get to post pandemic is Fenway for sure.
Yeah, same. I've been by it. I've never, just like Wrigley, I've been by it. I've never been in it yet. Can't wait to get in it sometime.
Yeah, you got to get into Wrigley now that they've done a lot of the upgrades at Wrigley. I mean, I had been there. First time I was there was back when Piazza was playing for the Dodgers and Lasorda was the manager.
Damn, you're old too.
Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe
I was back there a few years ago. I got to watch my favorite pitcher, the Professor, pitch. That game. So it's just a different atmosphere. Wrigley, Fenway, those places are just,
Yeah, I'm bummed I never made it to Yankee Stadium. Wrigley's a place I'd love to get to. I mean, it's a little different now than originally, but still a cathedral when you're talking baseball stadiums.
All right, so let's move on to the champions of the AL East last year. You have the Tampa Bay Rays. They won 162. They won the division and then were promptly eliminated by the Red Sox in the ALDS. The Rays bring back once again a really, really solid lineup. You've got Mike Zunino catching. You've got G-Man Choi at first, Brandon Lowe at second, Yandy Diaz at third, Wander Franco on his monstrous 11-year, $182 million deal. In the outfield, you got Randy Arozarena, Kevin Kiermaier, and Manuel Margot, Austin Meadows at DH. And again, the Rays know how to develop pitching. You've got Shane McClanahan, you got Shane Baz, Drew Rasmussen. They signed Corey Kluber on show us what you got kind of deal, 1 year, $8 million. They also have Luis Patino, and they've got Andrew Kitteridge in the bullpen, along with Pete Fairbanks, JP Frierson, Brandon Berger. I mean, guys, the Rays are still stacked. The AL East, as far as I'm concerned, is still the Rays division to lose. What do you think, Jim?
I think you're 100% right. I mean, it's scary, in the notes you put together when you're looking at this, and you put new acquisitions in italics, and I'm sitting there trying to find italics with the Tampa Bay Rays, like, and when you're show us what you got is an $8 million Corey Kluber, like, as your number 4 pitcher. My God, like every other team in the league, I feel like would kill to have that. So yeah, they're a team that was fantastic through the regular season. And I mean, it's a shame because, we talk about Baltimore being a city that just aches for good baseball. You can walk up day a game and get premium seats at Tampa. I mean, you have a terrible old stadium. Like they need to get outside. Hell, just freaking blow the roof off of that crappy joint. At least get some sunlight on your games. You're in Florida, for God's sakes. But besides the stadium and you have a fan base that like just doesn't seem to care. It's astounding when you have such a good team. So but yeah, there's to me there's no reason to believe that the Rays aren't the go-to for this division.
What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, it's hard to argue. They didn't lose really anybody of consequence. They've locked in Franco for 11 years. I mean, that's huge. That they didn't add too much of anything. I mean, Kluber is I think going to be beneficial to him, but they won this division handily without him. So, I mean, they're easily the team of this division, but as we saw with both them and the White Sox, it really doesn't matter if you win your division once you get to October. But yeah, easily this is their division to lose.
I don't know if I go that far as to say it doesn't matter if you win your division when it rolls around in October, because I think something that was a massive help for the Braves against the Dodgers was the fact that they had home field advantage because they were the division winner, even though they had far fewer wins.
Right. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with that side of it. I think just the White Sox, the way that the White Sox fell apart like a dumpster fire after coasting to that division. The Rays, up until the last week, that last week they walked away with it. So, not having to play meaningful games the whole way through. The Braves played meaningful games the whole way through Saturday of that, or Friday of that week. So, that's. I think the difference division winning wise is that's the difference division winning is if you win it in the last week or week and a half, that's different than winning it in August or early September.
Well,
that was kind of more so where I was going with that.
That's fair. And it's also, we should also point out, as Jim said, they have no home field advantage because about 400 people show up to a game if they're lucky. Unless, the Yankees, the Red Sox are in town, and then all the Yankees and Red Sox fans living in Florida show up because they want to see their regular team play live that they can't usually see play live. Yeah. So Jason wants to ask, how's this team so good with such a crap payroll? Even when they were called the Devil Rays with Fred McGriff and Wade Boggs, the Yankees couldn't beat them.
True, man. It's astounding to look at in the world of the Yankees and the Red Sox and some of these other teams that just have these huge payrolls, and Tampa's just sitting there developing players, and they lose guys at end of these contracts, and they just keep finding ways to build them back in and to continue to flood players through this pipeline and bring players in, and they find ways to win. It is astounding to me. And like it should theoretically give hope to a lot of other teams around the league that like, why can't we do this? But man, it's an amazing, it's something special down in Tampa.
And Tony said, bet your mortgage that they'll be number one in the division. Absolutely. I'm betting the mortgage that they would be number one in the division. Pitching wins championships. Look at Atlanta in 2021. Look at Atlanta in 1995. Good pitching will take you everywhere when your offense is struggling.
Yeah. I mean, if your opponent can't score runs, Doesn't matter, all you got to do if your opponent can only score 2 runs, you only have to score 3.
Exactly.
So you don't have to get into a freaking boat race with somebody.
I mean, it's how the Braves knocked the Brewers out. It was good pitching against good pitching. So then you're looking at what's left with the offense, and Braves had more pop than the Brewers, so that's why they knocked him out. And yes, Jason, that is the only World Series of the fucking 90s that I am pissed off about. The Yankees should not have won that goddamn World Series. That was utter bullshit. 98, yeah, I have no arguments about the Yankees trouncing the Braves in 90, but 96, that was a load of bullshit.
Jason, you're welcome back anytime, man. Keep it up.
Yeah, I agree. It should have been Yankees done in 5 games, and the Braves crapped the bed when they got back to Turner Field, and it was extremely disappointing to say the least. Should have been back-to-back, damn it. All right, so what are you guys thinking win total? Jim, what are you thinking for the Rays next year?
I mean, I think 100's a decent number. I don't see them being any worse necessarily. Can they get to 105? Can they get to 110? Like, I mean, it's the number of wins over 100 is going to depend on the lineup. It has nothing to do with the pitching. The pitching is going to win them games that they probably don't have business winning. It's a matter of the lineup kind of meeting that challenge sometimes as well. Like, you're going to have points where your pitching doesn't hold up. So can the lineup hold them up in those games? I'll put them at a $1.05. I'll put them right there at 105. Slight improvement year over year, but it's hard to be much better when you're winning triple digits.
So true. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep them around 100. I'd say 100, 102. I'm not. The rest of this division, again, we will wait and see what happens once the deal gets done, if it gets done. Where some other pieces fall. I think once that happens, we may need to look at this and go, well, based on what we had, yes, but what they have now, how different is that? But I'd say 100, 102.
Yeah, Jason says 101. I think about 105, honestly. This team is solid. And now that they have some postseason experience, they will be a better team in the postseason next year as well. Let me roll back to the Yankees for 1 second. I had one other thought. Joe, you had brought up, they might go after Carlos Correa. That's not the free agent I think the Yankees are going to throw the most money at to try and improve that team. I think that they're going to throw the most money at Freddie Freeman to try and get him out of Atlanta, because let's face it, the Yankees need a bat at first base.
Yeah. I know we'll talk about the NL East in a couple weeks, but why the hell didn't the Braves sign this guy already?
Good question. I don't have an answer. I wish I knew. I really wish I knew.
I could see him going after Freddie. I think, Freddie is a little bit quicker, I think, defensively than their options now. Bat wise, it's between him and again, I don't know that Rizzo will stay, but if Rizzo comes back, between him and Rizzo, the offense is about equal. Maybe Freddie's a little better. But defensively, I think Freddie is a little more athletic.
Let's see, the Freddie debate's going. Jason says the Yankees are going to get Freeman. Pat Sienkiewicz, I don't think there's enough money in the Yankees to lure Freddie from Atlanta. God, Pat, I hope you're right. Jason, I agree with that. The crazy thing, Tampa's been a top 5 team for almost a decade, averages 25,000 fans a game. Sounds like Marlins fans, except for the fact that the Marlins are lucky if they get 2,000 at a game. Weird how Florida baseball isn't big unless they make the World Series. I don't understand why. Well, I can understand for Tampa Bay. They were bad for so many years after they came into the league. Their stadium is one of the most unremarkable piles of garbage in the league.
Oh, yeah. Bad.
I mean, even Veterans Stadium, as much of a dump as that was better than Tropicana Field.
Yeah, there's nothing endearing about Tropicana.
Yeah, nothing at all.
There are college stadiums that are better than the Trop.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nondescript pile of concrete. It's garbage.
I mean, last summer I had the opportunity to go to 3 different minor league teams. I got to go see the Senators. I got to see up in Harrisburg. I got to see the Barnstormers several times. Obviously, I actually ran into Jim once.
Yeah,
and I also I flew down to Tennessee to visit my buddy John, and he and his girlfriend took me out to see the Nashville Sound. That stadium is gorgeous.
That's right along the river, isn't it?
Yeah, it's right on the river, and in the right center field scoreboard, it's shaped like a freaking guitar.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
dude,
pretty cool.
And the best part is, by the end of the 6th inning, all the young kids that were down in front of us were gone. So me and John just sat back, drank a lot of beer, and started heckling the umpire and the other team. And the older people sitting behind us were just cracking up.
Man, dude, I tell you what, though, I got to get to that place that Jason retweeted from the Atlantic League the other day.
The Long Island Fair, where the Ferry Hawks.
Ferry Hawks.
Yeah,
Ferry Hawks. That's it.
My God,
that looks gorgeous.
What a freaking view, man! And that's the thing, like, you know, major league stadiums are awesome. Don't get me wrong, at least a large number of them, but you know, there's still something special about going to a minor league park in a small town or, you know, a small city and catching a game. City Island in Harrisburg is absolutely gorgeous unless it's mayfly season. But yeah, I mean, going to a minor league park, man, you grab a dog, grab a beer, grab a pretzel, something. I mean, it's just classic. You know, I got out to 2 or 3 Barnstormers games last year, and you know, I hope to get to even some more this year, because it's just, you know, it's a good time. It's a good time. It's relatively cheap to go to these minor league games. You know, you don't have to know the players. You don't have to. It's not about, you know, the millions of dollars, whatever. But man, there's nothing like getting into a ballpark and feeling the sun on your face, drinking a cold beer, hearing the crack of the bat and the snap of the leather in the glove. It's just, there's something special about it.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you on that one. Let's see. Tony thinks Freddie's going to go to the Dodgers. Jason thinks I'm nuts saying that thinks Pat's nuts saying there's not enough money to lure Freeman to the Yankees.
I was going to say, New York, they'll just send 2 Brinks trucks and back him up to his house. You got to be out of your mind.
Like I said, I'm hoping.
Yeah, you got to be hopeful as a Braves fan, but the implication that there's not enough money in New York is pretty laughable there.
Yeah. So, yeah. The other thing I also must say I enjoyed down in Nashville, all the seats had freaking thick cushions on them. It was
even better.
Right. And I won't say it's because there may be a higher obesity problem down south, because let's face it, it's one of the few areas that eats worse than Lancaster County, if that's really possible. But that's also a AAA level team too. So
it's a little bit different than Lancaster.
Yeah, that's for sure. And even Harrisburg, because that's only a AA level club, right?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I always like going to Reading too. It's been a few years since I've been to Reading, because you don't have to go down into the city, which is an absolute dump hole. But the First Energy Stadium there was always a nice one. So maybe I'll get out to a game there this summer too.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. Yeah, supposedly the Revolution have a nice stadium too. I just can't comprehend going to York unless I'm going to
I've been there, and they have a Green Monster that's actually taller than Boston, in York. But yeah, it's not the most endearing part of town over there. Not a whole lot much more different than Clipper Magazine Stadium. So day game, I would recommend day game for the Revolution.
To be fair, are there any endearing areas of York City?
Yeah, the part when you see the sign that says you are now leaving York.
Oh, so true. So true. Now, okay. All right, Tony. All right. I will agree with this to a point. The West Coast, they do have very fan-friendly stadiums. The East Coast is nostalgia. Yes, because the East Coast, but Dude, keep in mind, the East Coast is where baseball started, and then it expanded
Gee,
out.
shocking. Nicer in Los Angeles than New York
Yeah.
City.
But that said, I'm sorry. The Battery in Atlanta, that's one of the nicest fan-friendly stadiums there. Like, they built that to be a fan-friendly stadium. Freaking Citizens Bank Park is a fan-friendly stadium as long as you're a Phillies fan.
You can comment all you want about Phillies fans, and especially you get caught in a 2-hour rain delay and people have nothing to do but drink there. You're gonna run into that almost anywhere if people have an excuse to drink too much. But the Citizens Bank Park is gorgeous, and there's not a spot in that park where you can't see the game. Really a well-designed park. Even the outfield area with the standing room only, got the cheesesteaks out there. Citizens Bank, and then you got the view of the skyline of Philadelphia with the sun going down. Yeah, you can't beat that. I'm not going to deny that the sunset over the valley at Dodger Stadium isn't going to be probably one of the nicer parks in all of the Major League Baseball, but let's not discredit some of the parks in the East either.
Yeah. And one other thing, Tony, let's keep in mind the Dodgers needed to do a lot of real shady shit to get that stadium put into Chavez Ravine, and had to get a whole lot of people quietly moved out of the way to make it happen.
Yeah, jeez.
Oh, Jesus, Jason. The last exciting thing that happened in Baltimore, besides Cal Ripken's record over Lou Gehrig, was when watching Lamar Jackson.
Damn.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Whew.
Jason,
yeah, I'm gonna have to watch your podcast tomorrow night. He's on fire tonight.
Yikes.
And Tony, here's the thing, man. I don't know much about the NBA stadiums. I don't watch basketball except the playoffs. I am a Lakers fan because my mom was a Lakers fan, except for the brief period when everybody that wasn't playing against Michael Jordan was a Bulls fan in the 90s. So I'll take your word for it. I don't think it's the same ownership. I think it's different owners because the owners of the Hawks are willing to actually spend money up to the salary cap, whereas I feel like every year the Braves fans are begging Liberty Mutual to get up off their asses and toss Alex Andopoulos an extra $10-15 million to go after players. So, yeah, correct by the dot. Yeah. Oh, man, this has been fun, guys. So, Jim, where can people find you, bud?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Big Jim Sports. If you like football and sports, obviously you probably wouldn't be here if you didn't. Check out the Huddle Up Podcast. We're on Twitter and Facebook at Huddle Up Podcast, and we finally got our podcast audio feed restored. We transferred over to Anchor, like this one. Great platform. So you can subscribe to us there. Tuesday nights live at 9:00. So we'll be live tomorrow night looking at what happened this past weekend and looking ahead to the conference championship weekend. So make sure you tune in and check us out over there. Also, if you're a pro wrestling fan, Thursday nights at 8:00. Yeah, I can't wait to talk to you tomorrow, Jason. And for the record, I'm pro 49er, so you don't have to come firing hot at me tomorrow. But Thursday nights, if you're a pro wrestling fan, 3 Count Thursday, we air live at 8:00. I also got that podcast feed restored. So you can find us at 3 Count Thursday, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, 3countthursday.com. Yeah, AEW. We talk AEW. And oh man, yeah, don't worry. We'll rip Ernest tomorrow night. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. But yeah, that's where you can find me. If you head to any of those Twitter channels, Facebook channels, you'll find the link tree there. Everything you need to know about us is over there. It's been a pleasure, boys. I got 2 in me, so I'm feeling a little toasty on a Monday night, which is always a good thing. And I'm sure we'll have you back on Huddle Up to look at the start of the baseball season here in a couple of months.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be happy to be there. And yeah, Tony, absolutely check out 3 Count Thursday. It's a phenomenal podcast. My wrestling fandom stops at college and Olympic, but honestly, the it's a quality show, man. Even if you're not into the pro wrestling, but you like it's a great show.
We have fun. We have fun. We try not to take things too seriously because it's grown men battling over a belt in their underwear. So you can't take things too seriously.
All righty. So you can find the audio for us on Anchor as well, Spotify, Breaker, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, Amazon Music, and Spreaker. You can see us live on our YouTube channel, on our Facebook Live, and on Twitter. You can find our merchandise at redbubble.com/people/DDAB-podcast. Follow us on the Facebook page, facebook.com/dollardogsandbeer. On the Twitter page at DDAB_podcast. You can find us on Twitter. I'm at PyroLord314. Joe is at JoltonJoe35. And Jason, if he ever gets around to setting up his damn poll, he said he was going to set up 2 weeks ago for his new show-specific Twitter
Get
handle.
off your ass, Jason.
Maybe that might theoretically happen at some point or another. We are presented by Dark Arrow Podcast, LLC, and we are sponsored by Whiskey and Blade Barbershop in Lidditz. May your dogs always cost $1. May your beer always be cold. Have a good night, everybody. And guys, on the live stream, thanks for the chat tonight.